I can't believe they did it. There were rumors, of course. We heard someone would be wearing the Boba Fett armor, but that it wouldn't be Boba Fett himself, and everyone, including myself, started to wonder about Cobb Vanth from the interludes of the Aftermath trilogy. I was hopeful, but I kinda figured they would just ignore that and do their own thing, and whatever happened in between those stories would be explained in a reference book or something. But my hope was not displaced. They did it. We just saw a very minor book character step into live action. As someone who has now spent nearly 6 years reading and watching and playing everything Star Wars has to offer, this has been one of the most rewarding moments I can think of. But that's just kind of the icing on top of an excellent episode. Din is currently searching for more Mandalorians to help him find the child's kind. So naturally, he goes to a shady underground fighting ring. Perfect place for a kid. I'm glad to see we're immediately still exploring Din's complete unpreparedness for raising a child, and once again, we are getting close-ups of the baby's face as it's just watching people fight. Last season, it led to him force-choking Cara. I think we're going to see the baby go even further down the dark side before this season is over if things continue the way they have been. As Joseph Scrimshaw from Force Center pointed out in our preview discussion last week, the child is at the point where he recognizes Din's weapons and knows what's about to go down. Anyway, Din gets a lead after a bunch of murder, and back to Tatooine we go. When the trailers came out and we saw Tatooine again, I was like, really? We spend so much time there in the movies, shows, video games, it's a lot. But do not listen to me, it was absolutely worth it. Not just for the recognizable stuff, but for the new twist on old things. Yeah, obviously it's great to see R5-D4 again, to know he's okay, but it's also great to learn even more about Tusken Raiders, to see repurposed pod racer parts, to see a new take on Krayt dragons. Similar to Episode 5 of Season 1, it's not just a return to Tatooine for the sake of it. Din makes his way to Mos Pelgo to find a man wearing Mandalorian armor, but he's no Mandalorian. He's a simple marshal of a simple town, wearing something that doesn't belong to him. Cobb Vanth, the man who purchased Boba Fett's armor in the Aftermath books to protect a small town. It mostly all lines up as we see a flashback to Cobb's past. His town was enslaved immediately after the fall of the Empire. He escapes and winds up in a sandcrawler where he is able to purchase a salvaged set of armor. He returns to liberate and protect his town. The events in the sandcrawler don't play out in the exact same way, and we don't follow up on some of the other stuff in Mos Pelgo, like the fact that they're trying to raise a Huttlet to rule peacefully over the area, filling the power vacuum left behind by Jabba. But it's more than fine. This is still enough, it's still rewarding, and that stuff isn't pertinent to the story. That first meeting is perfectly tense, though. We know how important Mandalorian armor is to Din, so he's not surprisingly upset to see a non-Mandalorian wearing it. I was so excited to see Vanth, and then I was terrified that they were about to have a shootout right then and there. I like both characters, I do not want to see them fight. Fortunately, they're interrupted by a Krayt dragon that's been terrorizing the town, and Cobb says he'll give up the armor if Din helps kill it. The rest of the story plays out kind of like a combination of chapters 2 and 4. Din has a quest to kill a beast to get what he wants, and he has to work with a bunch of villagers to do it. I think this episode is all about setting aside differences for the greater good. The most obvious example would be the cooperation between the villagers of Mos Pelgo and the Tusken Raiders. We've known from A New Hope and Attack of the Clones that humans and Tuskens don't get along. Tuskens are treated like savages, but from their point of view, their home is being invaded and overrun by outsiders, so they fight back. The Cowboys and Native American-style conflict fits very well with the show's Western style. But what chapters 5 and 9 both do is give us that Tusken Raider point of view a lot better. They're doing what they have to survive, and in a lot of ways are more understanding than the townspeople. Ultimately, they all work together to take down the Krayt dragon, and peace is reached. On a more personal character level, Din and Cobb are also very different. They both wear Mandalorian armor for protection, but it's a creed and a way of life for one of them. They're about to shoot each other when they first meet, and then they're flying around and fighting together by the end, which is awesome, by the way. Din grows to respect Cobb so much that he winds up potentially sacrificing his life to take down the dragon, and he trusts him enough to leave the child in his care. I love that. Din probably wouldn't admit it, but I believe he thinks deep down that Cobb is worthy of wearing the armor. I've been guessing that a running theme of the entire series is Din learning that the armor and the creed don't make you a Mandalorian. It's your actions and what you do with the armor or whatever power you have. Vanth has used his armor to defend the people that are important to him. Din and many other Mandalorians in the past have used theirs to conquer or for their own personal gain as bounty hunters. If he continues to seek out Mandalorians this season, I think he'll continue to see that there isn't only one way. With the Krayt Dragon defeated, Din heads back to his ship with Boba Fett's armor. I wonder if he even knows whose armor that is. It seems like he's clueless. I would think a bounty hunter like him would recognize Fett's gear, but he also didn't know what Jedi were, so who knows? He might wind up receiving a rude awakening soon because the final shot reveals none other than Temuera Morrison. Fett is officially back. He's apparently been surviving on Tatooine for 5 years doing what? I don't know. That'll be interesting for them to explore. It seems like he would have been able to find his own armor during that time if it only took Din an episode. And why did he take it off in the first place? Did he abandon it? Or maybe he passed out after escaping the Sarlacc and the Jawas stole it? We'll have to wait and see, but I do hope it's addressed. And I have faith that it will be at this point, because again, a year ago, I never would have guessed that this show would tie into a few chapters from the books. I was expecting Boba Fett to appear sooner or later, but I just assumed he'd have the armor, and that would be that. We'll fill in the gaps later. But nope, the books count this time. It hasn't always felt that way with new Star Wars content. I felt The Rise of Skywalker was actively ignoring some of the information put forth by books and comics about Poe, and that annoyed me. So to have a story come along and say, well, maybe we shouldn't just jump straight to Boba Fett in a full suit of armor is so refreshing and exciting. And I've barely even touched on the other Easter eggs and references in this episode, like Cobb riding what appears to be at least part of Anakin's pod racer as a very cool repurposed speeder, or a pack of Massifs with the Tusken Raiders, or the Tuskens using their gaffy sticks to clean their Bantha's teeth. Like, they're not just weapons, they're multi-tools, and it just further shows that the audience and the humans don't fully understand this culture, we just go along with what's presented to us. Or the fact that the Krayt Dragon's calls seem to straight up sample Obi-Wan's imitation from A New Hope. Or Din whacking Cobb's jetpack so he flies off wildly just like in Return of the Jedi. Or, finally, the fact that the Tuskens celebrated over finding a Krayt Dragon pearl lifted straight out of Knights of the Old Republic. And I'm sure I'm missing a lot, that's just the stuff I can list off the top of my head. There's always a worry going into a second season of a show. Will it live up to the hype and expectations of the first? So far, I'm thrilled to say that it's off to a great start. Another episode with a very solid balance between new and familiar, and the familiar is usually given a fresh twist. It seems like the show is still keeping that very episodic format, with new characters popping up just for an episode or two. I am hopeful we see Vanth return. Maybe he'll join the team, so to speak, in the final episodes of the season. And I hope Din continues his search for Mandalorians. There are plenty of rumors out there about who we might encounter, and I'm excited to see most of them play out. Maybe we'll get a new Mando every week or so, but I hope we meet some new faces as well. As thrilled as I was to see Cobb, Vanth, and Boba Fett today, I don't want the series to turn into a slew of cameo appearances. Part of the strength of this series is its disconnect from the larger universe. It can tell its own story, and yes, some familiar faces popping in every so often is fun, but I don't want it to become a crutch. I want The Mandalorian to stay its own thing. But if today's episode is anything to go on, I feel confident trusting in both Favreau and Filoni. And that's everything I have to say about today's episode, but our Mandalorian discussions won't stop there. Come back at 6 p.m. Eastern to join Molly, the Resistance Broadcast, and I as we talk about the episode and take your questions. And all of our patrons can also look forward to our episode commentaries every week. Patrons at every level will get access to all of them, and we'll be recording them every weekend after each new episode drops. The link to our Patreon is in the description, but that's it for now. Let me know what you thought of the Marshal in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with our Mandalorian coverage every week, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.